Hello and welcome. So today I'm going over the ENFJ compatibility with all 16 types. There's 5 different tiers. The first one is you're in my life forever. They're going to have clear chemistry, undeniable connection. They're going to have good communication. They're going to be able to see the world a similar way. They're going to be in each other's lives forever. Next I have I love you, let's live. These are best friends. These are dynamic duos. These are ride or dies. These are connections you're going to have for a lifetime, but they might not always necessarily be a romantic connection. You're just going to have an amazing relationship and love each other your whole lives. Then we have let's be friends. Let's not overcomplicate this tier. You're going to get along with these people. You're going to be friendly with these people. You're going to spend your time with these people. These people are your friends. And then we have hello human. You might not always see eye to eye with these people. You might not necessarily speak the same language, and therefore you're not necessarily going to probably spend a lot of time with these people, but you respect each other's differences and just kind of acknowledge each other like, okay, hello human from time to time, but you're not necessarily trying to connect with these people. And then we have we might clash or ... Yeah, you might clash with these people, but there's always that possibility. Sometimes people say opposites attract, so you never know in any given situation. But more often than not, you're not going to see eye to eye, you're not going to communicate clearly, and there's going to be problems every single time you guys interact with each other, and therefore you might clash, or like I said, there's that possibility. I'm going to be going from left to right, and the timestamps will be below so you can jump ahead to whatever type you're curious about. However, I will be providing little tips and tricks for each one. This is the ENFJ function stack, and they're about 2% of the population. The first type I'm covering is the ENTP, so I'm going to have whatever type I'm talking about at that time next to the ENFJ, so you guys can compare how the functions align within their different function stacks, and ENTPs are 5% of the population. So without further ado, let's just get into the video. Alright, so ENTPs are going in I love you, let's live. These are going to be your ride or die situations, but more often than not, you're not necessarily going to have a romantic spark. You're just going to love each other, live with each other, and have an amazing time with each other. These individuals are perceiving this world with their NI and NE. ENTPs are idea generators. They're always coming up with new ideas. They have a lot of tabs open within their brain. They're considering a lot of things at any given time, so they might be a little scatterbrained from time to time. ENFJs are long-term thinkers. They're thinking about the long game, their end game. They're working in reality every single day to work towards their long-term goal, and they're going to utilize their family and friends and community members in order to achieve that dream that they're planning out for them. These individuals are going to be fast friends. The ENFJ is going to ask the ENTP, hey, what's going on with you? What are you studying? What are you working on? Is everything going well? And the ENTP is just going to start sharing their thoughts, going all around in the conversation, sharing all of their different ideas, and the ENFJ is going to have zero issue keeping up with the ENTP's train of thought. Yeah, the ENTP is going all over the place, taking a tangent here, taking a tangent there. The ENFJ might have just asked them one question, but the ENTP took the opportunity to share their framework on all of these different things, their understanding on all of these different things, their hot takes on all of these different things, and the ENFJ is probably thoroughly entertained. They're probably like, wow, this person is fascinating. I literally just asked them how are they doing, and then they started talking about what they were studying last night, how it connects to all of these different things, maybe how some of their other friends are also working on this project, working on this current theory, and the ENFJs are just eating up all of that information. So they're going to have a good time together, a good time communicating with each other, and when the ENTP finally is done talking, they are going to ask the ENFJ back, hey, but how are you doing? Sorry for talking for so long, I just had so much to say, but what's going on with you? What's new with you? And then the ENFJ is going to appreciate the fact that someone cares about what's going on with them. Yeah, ENFJs are always asking people questions, but not everyone else always returns them the same interest. Ask them what's going on with you. What long game are you working towards? What are you accomplishing in reality right now? And so when the ENTP finally stops talking, they will be curious about that ENFJ in return and then ask them all of the questions, and essentially they're going to have a good communication style overall. However, when they are communicating, they're not necessarily using the same language. They can definitely understand each other, but ENTPs are facts over feelings type of people. It's not the fact that they don't care about their community, because they really do. However, when they're communicating, they're focused on their hot takes first and foremost. They might not even be in touch with how they feel about a subject that they're studying, a subject that they're learning, a subject that they're simply talking about at that time, and therefore because they never take time to be in touch with, okay, how would this make me feel if someone was explaining or talking to me in this way? They might offend some people along the way while they're talking, and the ENFJ might not always appreciate that. They prioritize social harmony. They don't want anyone kind of creating issues within their friend groups, and not saying the ENTP is definitely going to cause problems with their friends, but their hot takes might be a little offensive from time to time, and therefore the ENFJ might be a little exhausted from time to time being being like, look, ENTP, can you possibly think before you speak? But the ENTP has so many tabs open at any given time. As soon as they have an opportunity to take the mic and start sharing their thoughts, they're going to do so. They're not necessarily prioritizing, okay, if someone said the same thing to me in this tone, in this way, explaining their hot takes, how they are right now, how would that make me feel? And therefore, they're going to kind of butthurt their community from time to time, and they will apologize. But I do think that will take a toll on the ENFJ, and therefore in the long term, the ENFJ might notice, okay, the ENTP is going to cause more social disruption, going to cause more social drama, is basically going to be kind of taxing on me from time to time, and therefore they might not necessarily want to be in your life forever in a sense of a romantic connection, but you love each other, you care about each other, you respect each other, and therefore you're going to kind of just live your lives doing your own thing. You know, when you come together, you got to banter to no end, be able to keep up with each other's thoughts. But simply the ENFJ might not necessarily want to prioritize living with the ENTP forever because they're going to cause more problems than not with their social connections, and they want everyone getting along. They want everyone on good terms. They don't want to have to hear the ENTP apologize time and time again for how they shared their thought on one thing. Just because they didn't see the point on like, okay, how will this make someone else feel? They might get kind of tired of that from time to time. Therefore, they're going to just love you, respect you, and be best friends for a lifetime. Y'all will be ride or dies. When you do want to go out and be social with your friends, definitely got to reach out to each other. You got to have a great time together. You got to banter and play off of each other within communication with ease. These types are great, but from an ENFJ's perspective, long term, I think they can see that the ENTP, they might create more problems that they actually want to deal with at that given time, and therefore, long term thinking, they're like, you know what, I might just connect with someone else for an end game. Yeah, they care about me. Yeah, they ask me questions. Yeah, they're considerate with me, but everyone else, they kind of offend more often than not, and therefore, you're just going to be, I love you, let's live. Now, INTPs are going to be in your lives forever. These introverts take a lot more time to really process the information before they actually speak up and share their thoughts. They want to share the full framework on whatever new idea that they came up with. So when the ENFJ asks them a question, hi INTP, what's going on with you? What were you working on last night? Is there any new idea that you're studying? They're going to definitely have something to say because there's always something new that's fascinating to the INTP. So they're going to take their time, explain what they're studying, go into all of the details, and the ENFJ is going to be patient. They're going to let the INTP speak. They're going to let the INTP explain and respond to their question that they asked them. And then the ENFJ is going to validate that INTP. That's so cool that you're working on that idea. That's so cool that you came up with that idea. That's so fascinating on that working theory that you were just sharing with me. I appreciate you sharing that information. It taught me a lot. Maybe they didn't really care for all of the details that the INTP just provided them, but they like their friends. If they didn't like their friends, they wouldn't be asking them questions. So the fact that they asked the INTP, hey, what are you studying right now? Yeah, they probably enjoyed that conversation at that time. Their NI is going to have zero issue really understanding where they're going within the conversation. They might be able to give some feedback to the INTP. Hey, your idea isn't necessarily the most grounded. You're kind of focused on the fantasy right now, which INTPs prefer to do. They're not the most grounded individuals. Neither types are really focusing on what you're supposed to do in a situation. They're both kind of rule breakers at times. Both of them do not care about how you're supposed to be living their lives. ENFJs are creating their own path in this world. INTPs are coming up with their own ideas, and whatever's comfortable for them, whatever they enjoy studying, that's what they're going to do. They don't really care what you're supposed to be focusing on. What are you supposed to be studying at that time? If they have a new thing that they're fascinated with, they're going to hold themselves away, take their time and study that thing. And when they do get back out into reality, they do become a little bit more social. They're hanging out with their family and friends, and the ENFJ asks them what's going on with you. They're going to be able to explain the full framework on like what's actually going on. And INTPs have FI in a playing position. Yeah, it's the last function within their stack, therefore they're not necessarily prioritizing it. When you're communicating with them, they're most likely talking about what they think about a situation, but they're not necessarily as offensive as perhaps the ENTP from time to time. They think before they speak, and therefore they're not going to cause as much social issues as the ENTP, and the ENFJ is going to thoroughly enjoy that. They're going to be like, wow, this person has just as many new ideas. They're going to be able to teach me all of these new subjects, and they're not causing me any social issues within my friend groups. They're not being offensive. They can be a little blunt from time to time and kind of shoot people's ideas down if they don't think they're logical, if they don't think they're plausible, if they don't think people are using their brains at that given time. They might call them out, being like, that's unrealistic. You're just kind of focused on how you feel. You need to focus on the facts. But how they communicate those ideas, they're going to kind of take their time, explain it it step by step so the information is easily digestible to that person. And therefore, the ENFJ is going to have a great time hanging out with the INTP. INTPs like their schedule. They don't necessarily like to be overly stimulated and show up to every social event all the time, which is fine because ENFJs are actually very independent. They don't mind showing up to social functions alone. They do have a somewhat of a full social calendar, and therefore if they have a good relationship with the INTP, they can be like, look, INTP, I know you want your alone time. I know you don't want to be interrupted. I know you want to be studying this thing, which is fine because I have all of these events planned with my friends, and I know you don't necessarily want to show up to all of those things, be super social, so I'm going to go do my thing, leave you alone, let you study, not bother you, and then whenever they do reconnect and they come back together later that night or later that day, the ENFJ is going to be like, okay, how far did you get with your studies? The INTP is going to enjoy being able to explain what they just learned, and they're going to have a good time together overall. So even though the ENFJs are a lot more social and they want to be a part of reality, that actually gives the INTP a lot more time to be alone, kind of doing the same old, that brings them comfort, that brings them enjoyment. So both of these individuals, when they come together, they're both going to encourage each other just to do what you want to do. The INTP low-key wants to get the ENFJ out of the house so they can have some alone time from time to time. The ENFJ wants to be social with their friends. The INTP is going to have zero issue with letting the ENFJ go out in reality. That's not what they want to do right now. They're both not living their lives by the playbook of reality, and so therefore they're just having a grand old time when they do reconnect and get back together, sharing ideas, explaining their long-term goals. They both do care about their community, and they both want to learn new things at all times. So these individuals can have an amazing connection. I think you guys, if you have a romantic spark, you're going to be in each other's lives for the long haul. I don't think you guys are getting rid of each other anytime soon. So ENFPs are going in, I love you, let's live. ENFPs are extremely passionate people. They're just going with the vibe of the situation, whatever feels right for them, and they're taking action on all of those passion projects sooner than later. These individuals are always doing and accomplishing new things in reality. So when they come together with the ENFJ and the ENFJ asks them a question, hey ENFP, what's going on with you? What new things are you working on? They're going to have a lot to say. There's a lot of things that they're passionate about. There's a lot of things that they feel about at any given situation. Therefore, they're going to share all of their current to-do lists, all of their current passion projects, and whatever new ideas that they're coming up with. The ENFJ is going to have zero issue kind of following their train of thought. Neither one of these individuals are focused on what you're supposed to be doing in a situation right now. They're creating their own path in this world. They're coming up with all of these new ideas, and they're not doing what you're quote-unquote supposed to do in this world right now. The ENFJ is definitely a little bit more grounded in reality, and therefore can kind of give feedback to the ENFP from time to time. Hey, all of your new ideas are super great. I clearly see that you're super passionate about it. They're going to validate those ideas, validate those big feelings, and then they're going to supply, hey, but it's not necessarily the most grounded idea. I don't necessarily see how it's workable in reality right now. However, I see your long game. I see where you're trying to go with this idea. Their NI had zero issue keeping up with the ENFP's train of thought as they took the conversation in so many different directions. The ENFJ was being able to keep track of all of those things. These individuals definitely have potential for something more, like you're in your life forever. However, I think both of these individuals are big personalities when they're within friend groups. I'm not saying they're both kind of in charge of their friend groups, but they're both kind of natural leaders in communities. The ENFPs have no issue coming up with new ideas and applying them in real life, explaining to people the actionable steps that everyone needs to be taking. Yeah, they might get distracted by a new passion project that they feel about at any given time, halfway through the steps on whatever thing that they're working towards right now. However, they're going to waste zero time kind of taking action on whatever passionate thing that they're interested in at that time. ENFJs are wasting zero time planning new events with their social circle. They want to get out into reality. They want to gossip. They want to see what is everyone up to in real-time reality right now. They want to see how's everyone doing, checking in with all of their community members. Hey, what's going on with you? Who do you like right now? Maybe they want to be a little mastermind and plan to meet up with someone and kind of have them connect because they can see the potential with someone in reality right now. They can see a possible opportunity within a relationship or a dynamic. So these individuals kind of want to take charge, and therefore sometimes I think they might clash within their friend groups. Not in a bad way, but I think they might kind of go head to head on like who's the head honcho, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying I think most often than not, you're going to love each other, respect each other, and want to be in each other's lives for the long haul, but you don't necessarily want a relationship with each other. You value each other's ideas, you value each other's social connections, you value the fact that neither one of you are shutting each other's ideas guys are long-term plans down. Neither one of you are focused on what you're supposed to do in reality at that time. You're creating your own path. You're creating your own new ideas. And you're both going to be able to validate each other every step of the way. The issue I think you guys are going to come into is the fact that you both just have really big egos, which point blank isn't necessarily a super negative thing, but I do think you guys might see each other as a competition, a competitor from time to time, rather than a long-term lover. But there's always that possibility, so you never know how these dynamics might work. But I definitely think you guys love and respect each other, and I definitely think you got to let each other live and not get in each other's way, not got to shut down each other's ideas. I think you're going to have a good relationship overall. All right, so INFPs are going in You're in My Life forever. These individuals are shadow functions of each other, so you kind of will see each other within each other. No, you're definitely not the same personality types. However, you will notice certain similarities when you guys are hanging out, when you're communicating, when you're vibing in reality in real time. You're going to kind of notice some similarities between how you guys behave from time to time, and therefore I do believe you're going to find instant comfort with each other. ENFJs are long-time thinkers. ENFPs are idea generators. Both of them are considerate and caring to each other. ENFJ is going to be asking the INFP, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What's going on with you? And the INFP is going to be able to appreciate taking some time, communicating how they feel, getting validation, because the ENFJ is going to be able to listen to every little thing that the INFP said. Maybe they're going all around within the conversation, but that's going to be zero issue for the ENFJ's NI. They're going to be able to keep questioning and validating the INFP as they're communicating. And I think the INFP is going to be able to feel seen. They're going to be able to feel loved. They're going to be able to feel appreciated. And therefore, when they come together, I think it's a very sweet, loving relationship. Neither of them are focused on how you're supposed to behave in any given time. Yes, the INFP has SI as their child function, but that just means whatever brings them comfort, whatever thing from their past that actually made them feel good in reality, they're going to kind of do that on repeat. And if that's hanging out with the ENFJ, they're going to want them in their life for the long haul. They're not going to want to get rid of this connection anytime soon because they are validated and feel seen and being able to share their ideas without being shut down or ignored. The ENFJ is definitely going to let the INFP be seen, and I think the ENFJ is just going to enjoy all of the ideas that the INFP shares. They're going to enjoy their time being able to care and validate the INFP. I think in real-time reality, they're going to have a lot of fun. One possible slight issue could be the fact that ENFJs are very social. They want to be a part of reality all of the time. They have a big social calendar, so they enjoy going to a lot of events in reality. The INFP kind of might want to stay home more often than not sometimes. Maybe they might be getting overly stimulated going to all of these social functions with the ENFJ. If the INFP communicates that and says, hey, ENFJ, I understand you always want to go out and about with your friends, which is fine, but maybe I just might want to stay home, listen to my music, kind of vibe out, just chill out at home, not be overly stimulated. I think both of them will have a good understanding when they communicate those things. The ENFJ is definitely still going to want to, touch base with all of their friends. They're going to be like, as long as you feel fine staying at home, being by yourself for a while, not necessarily being overly stimulated, you don't have to go out in reality right now, but I want to be seen, I want to be social, I want to experience this new thing. So as long as they can communicate that before the INFP gets way too overly stimulated and just explain, hey, I want some alone time more often than not, I just want to kind of keep to my routine rather than having all of these new experiences, I think the ENFJ will be fine with that because they're independent individuals. They don't mind going in their own direction, showing up to events alone. They're going to make friends in every room that they walk into. So they probably see no issue with that dynamic. As long as you communicate those things, I don't see any issue with this relationship overall. I think you're going to be in each other's lives forever. It's a very sweet and loving relationship. So I think you're going to have a great time when you connect in reality. All right, so ESTPs are just going in let's be friends. ESTP's dom function is SE, so these are very reactionary people. If they see something funny, they're going to share their hot take. And if it offended their family and friends, they will say sorry. They will apologize if they went too far, but they're not thinking about the long-term results of whatever they just said. And the ENFJ is not going to really appreciate that. The ESTP is blind to FI, so they're not always checking in with how they feel about something. So they're not always considering how will this make other people feel. They simply saw something in reality. They saw an opportunity to share their hot take, and they wanted to play off the people around them. They want to notice if other people laughed, if they think it's funny too. And the ENFJ is not going to always think that their jokes are funny. ENFJs prioritize social harmony. They want everyone to get along. They want all of their community members in good graces, and they're thinking about the long-term implications of every little thing. Well, the fact that the ESTP ESTPs are super reactionary. They're super impulsive. They're just reacting to every opportunity in front of them right now. That's going to frustrate their NI. The ENFJ is going to be like, look, long term, I can't get a good read on you. You're not thinking about your future. You're only focused on reality right now. You keep just sharing your hot takes. You keep offending people. And yeah, you apologize from time to time. But the ENFJ is not going to see them as a solid person to stand by their side. ENFJs are not trying to offend people. They're not trying to be abrasive. And simply put, the ESTPs rub a lot of people the wrong way. And therefore, for the long term, I don't think the ENFJ is going to see the ESTP as a good partner for the long haul. They're going to be like, look, you're funny from time to time. Yeah, you have some good things to say. Yeah, I appreciate your framework on this thing. When ENFJs ask the ESTP some questions, if they ask them, hey, can you explain this thing? The ESTP is going to share their framework of information. And I do think the ENFJ will enjoy that information. However, how the ESTP is reacting to reality right now, long term, I think the ENFJ is going to see more negatives than positives on keeping the ESTP close to them for the long haul. They're going to be very exhausted with the ESTP's blind FI. Even though the ESTP does apologize, the ENFJ is not going to enjoy the fact that they're creating drama from time to time. And therefore, they're going to see that within the ESTP and be like, look, we should just be friends. Yeah, we can show up to social functions together, but I don't necessarily want you in my life for the long haul. And therefore, you're just going to be friends, which I think is fine. ISTPs are going in, you're in my life forever. These individuals are curious individuals. They want to understand the reality around them. They're noticing all of the different details. They're noticing how they're all interconnected, and therefore they're going to take a lot of processing time to actually understand their reality. And so when the ENFJ asks them a question, if they ask them, hey, can you explain this thing? The INTP is going to take their time explaining all of the details on the information. They're going to stay grounded within the conversation, be realistic with their explanation. They're going to explain how it's all interconnected for the long term. And the ENFJ is going to appreciate that. They're going to appreciate that feedback. They're going to appreciate their framework, and they're going to have a good dynamic when they're communicating. Both of these individuals have a long game for their lives, but they're also reactionary in real-time reality. If they see an opportunity in front of them and they think it's going to be a good opportunity for them, and if they think it's not going to cause any issues within their friends, their loved ones, their community, then they're going to take action on that thing right now. Both of these individuals are kind of adrenaline seekers in their own way. ENFJs always want to be super social, create new events and experiences and realities with their loved ones. They won't waste any time hesitating to get in reality if there's an opportunity in front of them. As long as it goes along their long-term plan, they're going to have a good time. So the ENFJ is going to be very bubbly, very curious about the INTP, ask them a lot of questions. I think the INTP is going to appreciate being able to explain their framework on all of these things. The ENFJ is going to be very patient, listening to all of the details that the ISTP is sharing. And I think they're going to have just a good time in reality right now. They're going to be able to play off of each other, be each other's dates to social events, have a good time, especially for the long haul. Both of these individuals are valuing their community. They want to show up to events, be a part of social functions, ask people, how are you doing, and respond in kind. Neither one of them are prioritizing what you're supposed to do in a given situation. ENFJs are making their own way in this world. They're creating their own path in reality. And similar to them, the ISTP is doing the same. Yes, they understand what's the current playbook of reality, and they want to stay in the good graces of the population of people. Well, that's the same as ENFJs. They want to be well liked. They want to be considered. They want to be cared about. They want to have a good community overall. With every action these individuals take, they have analyzed that decision before they actually took action. So even though they can be impulsive with opportunities and reactionary from time to time, they're logical thinkers. They're considering how will their decision affect their community members. And therefore, both of these individuals, I think, will have a very good reputation within their communities. They will be very well loved by their family and friends. And therefore, when they're introduced to each other, I think that they're going to click immediately. The ENFJs just got to constantly ask the INTP questions. The INTPs just got to constantly share their framework of information on any given thing. They're going to enjoy showing up to reality side by side. They're both thinking about, okay, every decision, how will this affect our long game? So overall, I think you guys are going to have a great time together, a great dynamic. I think Spark sparks will fly almost immediately, and you're going to be in each other's lives for the long haul. ESFPs are going in, let's be friends. Yeah, there's definitely potential for something more. I'm not ruling it out, but I think more often than not, the ENFJ might get a little impatient with how reactionary the ESFP is in reality. ESFPs are opportunists, so whatever they feel like doing in that moment in time, they're going to take action on it now. They're not necessarily concerned about their long term, so they can sometimes create a little bit too much drama from time to time, just because maybe they might feel slighted, maybe they feel betrayed, maybe they might not be feeling like they get the recognition that they deserve in that moment in time, and therefore they might start some issues within friend groups. And the ENFJs want social harmony. Even though they understand there's a lot of people in their community, there's a lot of different personality types, not everyone is going to click, they don't necessarily want someone starting some drama just because they feel a certain type of way at that time. ENFJs understand everyone has feelings. They're always asking their family and friends, how are you feeling? How are you doing? What's going on with you? And they definitely understand there could be clash of emotions from time to time. But I think the fact that ESFPs kind of react way too quickly and they're not considering the long-term issues, if they create too much drama, I don't think the ENFJ is going to appreciate that for the long haul. They're going to think they're fun. They're going to think they're friendly. They're definitely going to want to show up in reality together. They both have good aesthetics. When they show up in reality together, they definitely both want to be seen. They definitely both want to be noticed. They definitely want to be invited to every social function. But for the long term, I think the ENFJ might get a little frustrated with the fact that the ESFP is not thinking before they're reacting to a situation. Just because they feel a certain type of way and they take action on it right now, long term, that probably might have not been the best decision at that moment in time. And they're going to be friendly, trying to communicate that to them. They're definitely going to be good friends, but I don't necessarily think they're always going to feel like, okay, this is a good long-term partner for me. Their NI is clocking the fact that their ESFP is maybe too reactionary. Their SETE loop is doing a little bit too much in reality just because they feel any certain way. Yeah, the ESFPs are accomplishing a lot in reality, which is not necessarily point blank a bad thing, but the ENFJs notice how it affects their long-term goals, their long-term plans, how all of the people in their community is reacting to all of the impulses that the ESFP has at that moment in time. And therefore, even though they can validate each other's feelings, even though they're asking each other questions, how are you doing, what's going on with you, and they both always have something to say because the ENFJ social calendar is booked and busy, the ESFP social calendar is booked and busy, and therefore when they show up to events side by side, I think they're going to have a great time in reality together. However, long term, I think they do want different things because long term, the ENFJ can't really trust and consider, okay, will the ESFP keep causing drama for the long haul? Will they keep causing issues? In every room that they go in, are they going to constantly keep demanding this attention? Which isn't a bad thing. ESFPs are meant to shine in this reality real time. They want to feel great. They want to be talked about. They want people to notice the actions that they're taking in reality. However, I don't think the ENFJ long term wants to constantly be tracking and trending all of the new experiences that the ESFP is getting into. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. You could definitely be higher up in this tier. I think the ENFJ's NI is just going to be a little exhausted from time to time with how much possible drama that the ESFP might be making within the ENFJ's friend group. So there's definitely potential for more, but more often than not, y'all are just going to be besties. You're going to be great friends. When you show up to social events, you definitely want to be seen together. I definitely think you're going to have a lot of fun together. You're going to be able to validate each other. However, long term, I think you definitely want different things in reality. So you're just going to be friends. So ISFPs are going in, you're in my life forever. These individuals, they definitely want to be seen in reality. They definitely want to feel good in reality, but they're a lot more focused on their long-term plan. Okay, if they show up, if they explain how they feel about this, how will this affect them for the long term? And therefore, I think the ENFJ is going to really appreciate that. The ENFJ is going to ask the ISFP, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? And the ISFP is going to appreciate the fact that someone's curious about them. Someone saw that they were a little upset that day. The ENFJ's NI is going to notice all of the differences between the patterns of the people around them. So when the ESFP showed up at school or showed up at work and their mood was a little down in the dumps, and the ENFJ noticed that and asked the ISFP, hey, how are you feeling? Are you doing okay? You're not as smiley as you normally are. You simply look a little sad. How are you feeling? The ISFP is really going to appreciate the fact that someone noticed them, saw that change change in them and the reality and cared enough to ask the question, how are they feeling? So they're going to be able to explain those emotions. The ENFJ is going to have zero issue validating all of those different emotions within the ISFP. Their NI is going to be able to follow their train of thought and see how all of those different feelings are affecting them in reality in the real time. And therefore, I think they're going to have great communication overall. Neither one of them are focused on what you're supposed to do in reality. They're both creating their own long-term paths in this world. If they see an opportunity in front of them, they're going to kind of take action on it, kind of feel it out, experience reality right now. And they're both communicating, considering each other's feelings. They want to validate all of the different emotions within their partner, their friend, their loved one. And therefore, I think both of them will feel seen, appreciated, considered when they're in this relationship. I think this is going to be a very amazing, sweet dynamic when you guys get together. It might be a little bit of a slow burn, even though you guys might feel that connection right away. I think the ENFJ, the fact that they're super social, they're always going to a lot of events. I think the ISFP might kind of overanalyze and try to feel like, okay, they're this friendly with everyone. I see that they're kind to all of their friends within their friend group. Am I something special, or am I just another friend to them? And therefore, I think they might take it a little slow within the relationship. But once they realize that the ENFJ does see them as someone special, yes, they are a friend to the ENFJ, but they definitely probably want something more in this reality with you right now. They see a long-term potential relationship with you. I think the ISFP is going to feel a little bit better and be more willing to actually take action within the dynamic and share their true feelings with the ENFJ. And I think long-term that they're going to be in each other's lives for the long haul. So I actually don't see a lot of issues with this dynamic if you guys come together, if you guys are interested in each other. Yeah, there's not a lot of ENFJs out there, so they're not all going to be with the ISFPs. There's a lot of opportunities for both of these personality types. But when you do come together, I definitely think it's going to be for the long haul. If both of you guys want to be seen and cared for by each other in reality for the long term, I don't see many issues. So you're going to be in each other's lives forever. All right, so ENTJs are going in let's be friends. Both of these individuals are long-time planners. They're long-time thinkers. They're thinking about their end game. They're creating their own path in this reality. Neither one of them cares about the rule book of reality. Yeah, they might reference it from time to time, but by no means are they playing by that playbook. ENFJs are prioritizing their family, their friends, their community. They're constantly asking questions. Hey, how are you? What's going on with you? Is there any feedback you can provide me? And ENTJs are communicating by getting to the point. What do they need to accomplish today? What objectives do they need to cross off their to-do list? These individuals are very impatient with what they're getting done every single day. They see the opportunities in front of them, and they're wasting zero time getting to the point within a conversation. Sometimes the ENFJ might not necessarily appreciate that. The ENTJ might come off as a little abrupt and curt within the conversation. And let's say they're in a group dynamic at that time. I think the ENFJ is going to be like, look, ENTJ, I understand you have a lot to do today, but you showed up to this social event. So maybe if someone asks you a question, take some more time to actually consider how other people might feel to your response instead of just being a little curt within the conversation. But the ENTJ really doesn't see the point. It's the last function within their function stack. So they're really not prioritizing their communication style and how will this make other people feel. They're barely in touch with their own feelings. So maybe they worked long hours the night before. Maybe they haven't really taken a lot of time to eat a good meal. Maybe they're a little cranky from time to time. So they're going to be a little abrupt within the conversation. And I think that might kind of take a toll on the ENFJ, being like, look, I invited you to hang out with your friends. ENTJ, you're the one that actually took time and showed up in reality. You're the one that actually responded to the text saying, yeah, I'm going to come to this function. So therefore, if people ask you questions, maybe take some more time to be considerate. Ask them what's going on with you. Maybe explain your life in a little bit more detail rather than providing bullet points within the conversation. And therefore, I think the ENFJ might not necessarily see a long-term potential always with the ENTJ. They definitely could. I've definitely seen them in a long-term relationship, but with these kind of dynamics, I definitely think it's going to be a slow burn rather than a clear connection, because the ENTJ is not going to necessarily understand why the ENFJ is taking so much time to motivate and question their loved ones around them. They might be like, ENFJ, what are you actually getting done every day? Every single time I look your way, you're just gossiping with another person in class. You're just talking with someone at work. What are you actually accomplishing that day? Well, that's not their focus at all times. Their focus is checking in with their community. How's everyone feeling? How's everyone doing? Do they need a little bit of encouragement here or there? Can I motivate them in reality in real time? And the ENTJ thinks that's a waste of time within communication. So they're not always going to see eye to eye point blank. They will definitely respect each other's long games. They're definitely respecting understanding the fact that they're both kind of rule breakers in their own way. They're not going off of the society standard. They're just going off of whatever opportunity is in front of them. If it goes along with their long-term plan, the ENTJ is taking action. The ENFJ is creating that connection. So they definitely can understand their long games and how they're perceiving their world, but how they're communicating is going to clash from time to time. But because you both have NI as your parent function, you both will be able to track and trend and really understand, okay, that's just how that person communicates. That person just has a lot to do. They're just focused on their work that day. And therefore, there's going to be a lot of understanding, and therefore, this could be a slow burn type relationship. But right off the bat, in reality, I think you're not going to necessarily see the point of how you guys are communicating. It might clash a little bit, not to the point of having a negative relationship, but you're both long term might not see an opportunity of each other and each other's lives right now. So more often than not, I think you're just going to be friends, which is totally fine. All right, so INTJs are going in hello human. Yes, there's a possibility for something more, but more often than not, I think you're going to just respect each other's end games and just stay out of each other's way. And here's why. ENFJs are led with FE. They're in constant communication and contact with their community. They're always checking in with their loved ones, asking them questions. Hey, how are you? What's going on with you? What's new with you? How are you feeling today? And the INTJ is simply not going to see the point of that type of communication. They're blind to FE. It's not the fact that they don't care about their community members. They just don't understand why it's someone's priority to constantly check in with everyone else. INTJs have feelings, but they keep those feelings close to their chest. They're not always sharing it with the people around them. So if people ask them a question on how they feel, they're probably just like, I'm fine. They're not going to go into details. They're not going to over elaborate. They're not necessarily seeking validation from their community members on how they feel. They assume that other people are checking in with their own emotions every day. So they're super confused why the ENFJ is taking so much time out of their day to constantly reach out to all of their loved ones and ask them simple questions. Hey, how are you? How are you feeling? What's going on with you? They do not understand how other people's past experiences, what they did last night, how have they been feeling this past week? How is that even a priority? SI is both of their last functions, so neither one of them is living their life by a playbook. They're both creating their own paths in this world, and I think they're going to respect the fact that they're both forging their own way in this real-time reality right now. However, their communication styles are definitely going to be an issue from time to time. The fact that the ENFJ takes so much time out of their day to encourage, to motivate, to validate their loved ones, the INTJ is like, look, I have a to-do list, and none of the things on my list is considering, okay, asking everyone around me how are they feeling that day. That's great that you're so kind, ENFJ, but I'm working on my goals. I'm trying to accomplish these things. I'm trying to be productive in my life. I'm aware of how I feel. I don't necessarily need validation from anyone else, and therefore they simply do not see the point of that kind of communication style. And the ENFJ might encourage the INTJ to be more in touch with other people's feelings, but the INTJ doesn't understand long-term, why is that even a necessary thing for me to consider? They don't necessarily see the point of constantly being in constant communication with their community. They're simply blind to considering other people's feelings before they take action. And therefore, long-term, they're not going to necessarily want to spend a lot of time with each other. They don't want to be constantly told to care from the ENFJ. The ENFJ doesn't want to constantly criticize the INTJ for being abrupt within their communication, to being kind of abrasive, by being too direct within the communication within the workplace. They don't constantly want to be told what to do from each other at all times. And therefore, I think they're going to just respect each other's long-term plans and stay out of each other's way. There's not going to be easy communication between these two types. They might be able to validate each other from time to time. I think as they spend more time with each other, there's going to be better understanding. But point blank, you're not going to necessarily clash right away, but you're definitely not going to connect. And long-term, you guys might not see the need or desire or potential to connect in reality for the long term. You're just going to keep going on your own way. ENFJs are going to keep just being encouraging, motivating to the people around them. And INTJs are just going to keep being productive on whatever they're working towards that day because it feels right for them. So they're going to stay out of each other's way and just, acknowledge each other from time to time, being like, okay, hello, human, and just proceed with their life and not necessarily click in reality in real time. All right, ENFJ, when you meet other ENFJs, I think you're just going to respect each other and just stay out of each other's way. These are both very Dom-like personalities. They want to be the head honcho of friend groups. And therefore, when you guys connect in reality, you both have your own little friend group. You're both concerned with their community members. Yes, you will be able to see each other and respect each other, but I don't think you guys necessarily want to befriend and definitely love each other for the long term. Both of you have your own path in your reality. You have a vision, you're trying to manifest it in real-time reality, and you're working towards your goals every single day. And your goals probably pertain to your community members. So you're constantly in contact with your loved ones, checking in with them, asking them questions, and caring about them every step of the way. And therefore, you're both working towards your own goals. You might not be going in the same direction. You might not necessarily have the same vision for your future. And therefore, you got to respect each other. You got to notice each other's NI. You're both going to be able to see how you're standing up in reality in real time. And you're just going to kind of be like, okay, I appreciate you, ENFJ, but you stay over there. I'm going to stay over there. We're both going to go in our own long-term directions, and we're not going to get in each other's way in reality. And therefore, we both feel great about the fact that we're not clashing in real time. We don't necessarily need to connect. You have your friend group. I have my friend group. Yes, they could be something more, so I'm not saying you're always just going to like respect each other and go on your way. But NI is a big ego to have, especially as your parent function. Since you both have your own plan, neither one of you want to be told where to take your life. You're not living your life by the playbook of reality. You have your own vision, and you're going to work towards that goal every single day. And therefore, you're just going to be hello human and stay out of each other's way. So INFJs are going in, I love you, let's live. Yeah, there's definitely potential for something more. But NI are big egos. They have created their own path in this reality that they want to take. They have meticulously planned out whatever vision that they have for their future, and they were working towards it every single day. Every day that they're checking in with their family and friends, hey, how are you? What's going on with you? They're asking people questions. They're being considerate of everyone's feelings, and they have an end game in mind. So if both of them do not have the same vision for whatever reality that they want it for their life for the long term, if both of them are not taking their lives in the same direction, I don't think you want to be in each other's lives forever, but that doesn't mean you're not going to love and respect each other. There's going to be an immense amount of love and consideration when these dynamics click in reality in real time. Both of them are going to be kind and considerate and ask each other questions. Both of them are going to thrive off of the fact that each other's asking them questions, because more often than not, these are the people initiating the questions within the friend group. These are the ones that are asking people, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything I can do for you? These are the people that are noticing all of the differences within their community. Hey, I noticed you look a little sad, or you look a little tired today. What change is going on in your life? Is there anything I can do to make you feel better right now? They're going to notice all of those differences, and the fact that someone else is asking them those questions, I definitely think that they're going to love that kind of situation. However, if their long-term vision of reality does not align, I don't think that they want to go in the same direction of life. Will they be amazing friends within the same friend group? Absolutely. Both of them are going to be kind of the caretakers of their community. Both of them are acknowledging all of the differences in reality, are going to be able to check in with their friends when they notice a difference. Both of them are extremely observant people with their community members, and they're going to ask you a question when they notice there's a difference. Hey, how are you feeling? Can I help you? It looks like you're struggling, or you're super stressed out. They're going to be able to share their framework of information if they ask them, hey, can you explain something to me? I'm struggling to understand this thing. They're going to be able to provide information on their current understanding of that subject, and they're going to be kind of considerate within every conversation. So I definitely think you guys will like each other, love each other, respect each other. I just don't always think you guys might want a long-term life with each other. Both of these types are extremely rare, and every single individual in this world has a different long-term reality that they're trying to create. Everyone has a different vision that they want to manifest in their reality right now. So if you do have similar end games in mind, yeah, I think you're definitely going to be in each other's lives forever. But if not, you're just going to be amazing besties, amazing ride or dies, amazing friends for a lifetime. You're going to be able to go to each other when you're overwhelmed. If there's an interpersonal issue within your friend group, I definitely think you're going to reach out to each other first, ask each other for feedback. Hey, how should we handle this? There's a lot of drama going on. They don't want to create too much chaos. They don't want to exaggerate or cause any more issues within the different dynamics. They're going to try to overanalyze and take things step by step and not try to disrupt the social harmony of the communities. So these are both very kind, considerate souls. Simply put, you both have NI as your main perceiving function, and you might not perceive how you want to live in reality the same way. So yeah, you're going to be friendly. Yeah, you're going to ask each other questions. Yeah, you guys will thrive on the fact that you're giving each other appreciation, motivation, praise, feedback overall. You guys will enjoy those things from each other, but you both probably have a different reality you're trying to create right now. So if it does align, I wish you guys the best. I hope you guys have an amazing long time future together, but more often than not, y'all are just going to be besties, ride or dies for a lifetime. There's going to be a lot of love, a lot of respect, and you're going to just let each other live and not necessarily get in each other's way on your long-term plans. All right, so ESFJs are going in, let's be friends. Both of these individuals are focused on their community. Both of them are asking their loved ones, hey, how are you? What's going on with you? Is there anything I can help you with? Essentially, give me the gossip at this time. Give me the framework of information on the interpersonal workings of the people around us. So both of them are going to thrive off of that feedback. Both of them will love the information. Both of them will love explaining what's going on with the people around them at that time. They have a vision of reality that they're trying to manifest. They're working towards it every single day. And the ESFJ is kind of just doing what they're supposed to. They're kind of just staying within the good graces of reality. They're not trying to go against the grain. And therefore, if the ENFJ shares their long-term goals with the ESFJ, they might shut them down from time to time. They might not necessarily see right off the bat the new idea, the new path that the ENFJ is trying to take. They're not necessarily considering the long game of life. They're just taking life step by step. Every day, they're just checking in with their community members. They're doing what they're quote-unquote supposed to do that day. Yeah, they're open to the newness of some, cracking some jokes, pulling a prank from time to time. But overall, they're just staying on topic, accomplishing their goals step by step, and checking in with their community members every step of the way. And therefore, they could shut down the long-term end-game goal for the ENFJ. The ENFJ is not going to appreciate that. They're never going around this reality telling people you can't create your own plan for the future. They're the most motivating people on this planet. If you come up with a new idea, you come up with a new goal, they're going to be your biggest cheerleader every step of the way. And the fact that the ESFJ might have shut them down and being like, no, that's not plausible. The ESFJ might not see the long-term reality of their plan. The ENFJ is not going to appreciate the fact that they're not encouraging them, because ENFJs are the most encouraging people on this planet. So if they're not getting that in response, they might not necessarily want a long-term reality with the ESFJ. They respect their kindness. They respect the fact that they're asking them questions. Both of them are constantly communicating with their family members. Their family members might not always be checking in with them, but the fact that the ESFJ is actually noticing them and being like, hey, what's going on with you? What's going on with your friends? What's going on with your community? They're going to appreciate being able to share their TI, being able to appreciate their feedback about their loved ones, their community members. So they definitely will have good communication. They might be in constant communication. Long term, the ENFJ is not going to appreciate how lack of open-minded that the ESFJ possibly is. They're not trying to shut their ideas down. They simply do not see the long-term plan, the long-term path that the ENFJ is trying to take. They're doing things step by step according to how they're supposed to be living their life, and therefore they're not going to necessarily see the potential with the ENFJ. And the fact that the ENFJs, like I said, are the most motivating people, they're the most encouraging, they're going to be your biggest cheerleader. If they're not getting that in response from their loved one, they might not want you in their life forever. So I think you're going to be good friends when you're in social groups. If you're coworkers at work, you're definitely going to be in constant communication. You're definitely going to be the ones gossiping all the time about the inner workings of all of the people around you, which is totally fine. But just for the long term, I don't think you guys want each other in your lives for the long haul. And therefore, you're just going to be friends. ISFJs are going in, I love you, let's live. Both of these individuals care about their communities a lot. They're both opening the conversation by asking questions. Hey, how are you? What's going on with you? How are you feeling? Both of them are going to be able to give that information back, explain whatever they're currently working on or learning, and they're both going to be able to validate, oh, that's so cool that you're working on it, and then respond to the other person with another question. Okay, but how are you? What's going on with you? I appreciate you asking me about my inner workings of my life. I appreciate you asking me how am I feeling, but how are you feeling? What's going on with you? What's new with you? So these individuals, when they open their mouth and they're communicating, they're definitely going to be able to understand and respect and appreciate each other's communication style. However, they're perceiving the world as slightly different. The ENFJs are creating their own path in this reality. They have a vision for their future and they're trying to manifest it into reality right now. They have a long-term plan for themselves. They're taking their life in a new direction. They do not care about society's rule book, society's standard, what you're supposed to be doing at any given time. That might confuse, but also intrigue the ISFJ. ISFJs are normally rule followers. They're taking life step by step. If their family members said, hey, ISFJ, you're supposed to take over the family business. Everyone in the family works in the medicine field or in the law field. You need to become a doctor. You need to become an attorney. Whatever it is, they're going to do whatever their family told them that they're supposed to be doing. They're going to go to school, get those frameworks of information, and take their life in that direction because they don't want to upset their family and friends. They want to make them happy. They want to make them pleased. And therefore, they're going to stay in their lane, doing doing what they're supposed to do, but be kind and considerate every step of the way. So when the ISFJ asks the question to the ENFJ, hey, how are you doing? Maybe you met in school. What are you working towards? Where are you taking your direction in life? What are you trying to do after you graduate? And the ENFJ shares their long-term goals. The ISFJ might not necessarily see it immediately. It's not that they're blind to it. They're just not necessarily considering their long-term goals in reality, their end game. They're not necessarily taking a lot of time to analyze step by step. What are the differences? What are the same? And if I go in this direction in this world, what steps do I need to take? They're just kind of staying in their own lane, doing what they're supposed to do. But that doesn't mean that they're not intrigued. Any is their weak function, but it is within their ego. So they're definitely going to be open to hearing the new ideas. And the fact that the ENFJ is taking their life in a new direction is definitely going to be intriguing to them. They're definitely not going to understand how the ENFJ is going to get there, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to ask the questions and try to understand, okay, ENFJ, I see that you're going off track. I see that you're going to forge your life in a whole new direction. I'm unfamiliar with that. Can you kind of explain step by step what made you decide to do that? What kind of reality do you want for yourself right now? Can you please explain to me what you need to do in order for that long-term goal of yours to become a reality right now? So they're definitely curious individuals. They just might not necessarily understand why the ENFJ is going off track, not necessarily doing what they're supposed to do right away, but that doesn't mean that they don't want to learn. So they're definitely going to ask them questions. They're definitely going to be curious because it's definitely different than what they're supposed to be doing right now. So they are open to the new ideas. It just might not necessarily click right away. But the ENFJs, they love their family and friends. So if one of their friends or one of their coworkers or classmates asks them a question, they're going to take their time and actually explain and provide a proper response. So the ENFJ definitely could have a potential for more if they were raised with a lot of NE and NI and they were told it's okay to take your life in a new direction. It's okay to forge your own path in this reality. You don't have to take over the family business. Maybe they want to work with their family, with their loved ones, which is totally fine if that's what they want to do. They're simply going to be asking the ENFJ questions and being intrigued with, wow, you're totally going against the grain. You're not following the rule book of society. And y'all are going to be kind within the conversation, explaining the differences between y'all's paths within reality right now. Yeah, y'all are definitely perceiving your lives totally different, but you're communicating within the same language. So as long as you're asking questions and being patient and try to understand each other's perspective, there's a lot of potential. ISFJs are 10%. There's a lot of variety within this type, and therefore there definitely could be something more. So the ISFJ could be in your life for the long haul. They could just be friends that you keep, within your own social groups. But the fact that you guys are both constantly asking each other questions, you're going to thrive off of the fact that you're getting appreciation because you're always showing appreciation and motivation and encouragement to everyone else. And when someone finally provides that to you, you're going to kind of keep them around. It's going to make you feel good, and therefore you're going to want them as a close friend within this lifetime. So I definitely think you're going to love each other. I definitely think you're going to respect each other. You don't necessarily understand how you perceive each other's worlds immediately, but once you ask some simple questions, you're definitely going to be able to have a better understanding and a better framework on which direction that they're taking their life within this lifetime. They're going to be able to see the potential, see the opportunities, see the reality that they're creating for themselves every single day. So therefore, you're just going to love and respect each other, but there's definitely potential for more, and you could just, be baseline friends a little bit less, but more often than not, I think you're going to really appreciate and like each other's high FE within your function stacks, and therefore you're going to love each other, respect each other, and just let each other live within their placements within each other's life. All right, so ESTJs are going in we might clash or ... Yeah, there's always a possibility because everyone has a different upbringing, but more often than not, you guys are not going to see eye to eye. You're not perceiving this world the same. There's not going to be a lot of similarities between these types. ENFJs are leading the conversation by asking questions. Hey, how are you? What's going on with you? How are you feeling today? And the ESTJs are getting to the point. They're super confused why you're wasting their time asking them how are they doing. Okay, they have a to-do list. They're trying to be productive. They're trying to be efficient. And the fact that you're just asking them how are you feeling is not necessarily a top priority for them. So they're going to be abrupt. They're going to be curt. They're going to shut down the conversation sooner than later. And the ENFJ is going to be like, look, I was just trying to be kind. I was just trying to ask you how you're doing. I was just trying to motivate, encourage you if you were going to respond that you're tired, that you're exhausted, that you're kind of burnt out. I was simply asking you a couple of questions. You didn't have to be so rude. And the ESTJ is probably like, look, I have a lot I have to do today. I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be doing that. The ENFJ sees the new opportunity to possibly connect with this person, but the ESTJ is not giving them any kind of chance to actually connect in real-time reality. They're not going to want to waste time gossiping about their community members, checking in with how is everyone feeling? They simply do not see the point. And therefore, there's going to be a little bit of issue when they start talking and communicating with each other. And aside from the fact that they do not have the same communication style, they're not utilizing the same language, these individuals are both perceiving the world totally different. ENFJs are forging their own path in this world. They're creating their own lane. They're going off in a direction because they see a vision for their life and they're going to work towards their goal every single day. They have an end game in mind. And ESTJs are staying on topic, doing what they're supposed to do, taking their life step by step, accomplishing new goals, because that's what you're supposed to do in reality. Make it to the next level, climb the social hierarchy, do and achieve whatever you need to do in order to gain the next status symbol, in order to gain the next promotion. And the fact that the ENFJs are taking their life in a whole new direction, the ESTJs are not going to understand, hey, you're not supposed to be doing this, you're not supposed to be doing that. And the ENFJ is not going to appreciate the fact that not only is the ESTJ shutting down their kind, considerate questions that they're asking them, they're also telling the ENFJ you're not supposed to be taking your life in that direction. Well, the ENFJ does not care what you're supposed to do in any given time in reality. They're not living their life by the rule book of society, but the ESTJs are. They want to stay in the good graces, they want to do what they're supposed to do, and they're going to accomplish their goals step by step. The ENFJs might be skipping some steps, might be seeing some shortcuts, might be noticing some social connections and some opportunities, and they're going to just hop skip right to the manager position rather than working their way up within the workplace step by step, promotion by promotion. They're just going to skip right to the manager position because they saw that opportunity, they connected with those right people, they saw a new path that they could take in this reality, and they wasted zero time to get there. Well, the ESTJ is not going to necessarily appreciate that. They're going to be like, you weren't supposed to get that position, you haven't accomplished all of these goals, all of these achievements. I did everything I was supposed to do, I've accomplished all of these things. And they're going to get a little butthurt by the fact that the ENFJ is not following the rules. They're not going off of what you're supposed to do. They're not doing step by steps. They might not necessarily be accomplishing everything that the ESTJ is, but they notice the shortcuts along the way. They notice the opportunities, even though these people might want to get to the same position, being the manager, being the CEO, being whatever they want in reality, whatever vision that they want. ENFJs are creating whatever opportunity in their life, creating their own plan and utilizing all of their connections along the way. ESTJs might not be in the best good graces with all of their social networks. Even though they might be accomplishing a lot and staying within their lane, doing what they're supposed to do, they might have offended some people along the way, not really considered other people's feelings as they're kind of working towards their goals, and they're not necessarily creating a long game for their life. They're just doing their life step by step according to however they were supposed to do whatever thing that they're working on. And therefore, they might get a little slighted by the ENFJs hop skipping right to the top of whatever they're working on. They might try to shut down the ENFJ's long game because they really just do not see where they're taking their life in this reality. They don't necessarily see why they should overanalyze every little thing. ESTJs are impatient, they're proactive, they're not going to waste any time to work towards this thing. If there's an objective thing on the to-do list to do that day, they're doing it step by step of the way, wasting zero time to accomplish those goals. And while they're working very hard, the ENFJ is just gossiping with the friend at the water cooler. The ESTJ is like, they're not even doing the work that they're supposed to be doing. All they're doing is talking with their coworkers. Every time I look up, they're just socializing. And the ENFJ might be like, yeah, this is how you play it. You play off of people around you. But the ESTJ is just so focused on like, okay, what achievements have I accomplished? Trying to improve their resume, trying to explain to people what they've accomplished every step of the way. They're not necessarily realizing and utilizing their social connections, and they're not necessarily creating a long-term goal. So these individuals will probably definitely clash. They're not necessarily going to be besties. I don't necessarily see them in their life for the long haul. Everyone does have a different upbringing. Everyone definitely was told something different on how you're supposed to behave in this world. So maybe the ESTJ had a lot of NE and NI parents, especially if it's paired with FE and FI. If they were raised that they should definitely consider a lot of people's feelings, if they were raised that they should definitely create a long-term goal for themselves and not just do things step by step, if they were raised that it's okay to go against the grain sometimes and just come up with new ideas, and if that new idea is utilizing your social connections, as long as it gets them somewhere in reality in real time, then maybe that might be a good plan for them. If no one told them that that's okay on how you're supposed to behave, they're just rule followers. They're just going according to their checklist. They're just getting their work done every day. They're staying in the good graces of society, and they're going to be super annoyed and frustrated when the ENFJ makes it to the top and has created their vision of reality in real time. So there's going to be a lot of butthurt feelings between these two. ENFJs are not going to be validated. They're not going to be appreciated that their end game is being told, oh, you're not supposed to do that. They do not care if they were supposed to do do that or not. If they had a vision, they're making it their reality in real time. So they're probably like, sucks to suck, ESTJ. You keep pulling those long hours. You keep hoping for that promotion. But I have an end game. I've already connected with the right people and I'm where I'm supposed to be in reality. So you just stay over there. I'm going to stay over here. So they're definitely going to clash more often than not. So ISTJs are going in hello human. There's definitely potential for more because everyone has a different SI. You know, they're 10% of the population. There's a lot of variety within these individuals. But more often than not, there's not going to be a good communication. They're not really perceiving the world a similar way. And they're going to kind of shut down a lot of their ideas and questions more often than not. Because the ENFJ is leading every conversation with some questions. Hey, how are you? What's going on with you? What's new with you? How are you feeling today? And the ISTJ is blind to why that is important. Why are you asking me small talk questions about my emotional state? Why do you care about what I accomplished last night? Why are you even prying into the inner workings of my life? They might have a to-do list. They understand what they're supposed to be doing in this time. And nowhere on that to-do list is gossiping with their friends, gossiping with their coworkers, gossiping with their classmates. The fact that the ENFJ is constantly entering conversation with questions and they're asking how are you feeling, what's going on with you, all of this stuff. ISTJs are like, I'm in tune with my feelings, but I'm not going to share them with you. I don't need validation from you, ENFJ, so please do not ask me how I'm feeling. I'm going to keep that information to myself. I have a to-do list. I understand what I'm supposed to be doing in this situation. And by no means am I supposed to be wasting time gossiping with you. So more often than not, the ISTJ's got to kind of shut down the questions the ENFJ asks. They're not going to really take time to elaborate. They're definitely not going to be kind and ask the ENFJ in return, well, how are you feeling? What's going on with you? What's new with you? And therefore the ENFJ is not going to feel validated. They're going to be like, look, I just came to you. I was trying to be kind. I was trying to be considerate. I was trying to introduce myself. You're a new classmate. You're a new person within the workplace. I was just trying to be a little social. Maybe they were being a little nosy on how you stack up to all of their other community members, trying to get that information on you, trying to get the full framework of like, okay, who is this new person at work? And the ISTJ was a little curt within the conversation. They shut down all of those questions quick. They were a little offensive, being like, don't ask me questions on how I'm feeling. I'm not going to share them with you. They're definitely not going to return those questions to the ENFJ. They are going to respond to some of the questions because that is what you're supposed to do. When someone asks you a question, you're supposed to respond. But by no means are they going to elaborate. By no means are they going to provide all of the inner working details of whatever the subject that they were talking about. They're not going to fill in the framework of the ENFJ. So the ENFJ is going to leave the conversation more often than not unfulfilled. They're going to be like, what? I was just trying to be nice. I was just trying to be social. They didn't give me any good gossip, any good information. They didn't even ask me how I'm feeling. So there's not baseline going to be good communication. The ENFJ is perceiving this world based off of their long game. They have a vision for themselves in reality and they're creating a plan, a path in order to get there every single day. The ISTJs are rule followers. They're just doing whatever they're supposed to do. If their family told them, hey ISTJ, you need to take over the family business, you need to be skilled in this subject, you need to go within this medical field, everyone in the family is a medical professional, that is how you're supposed to live your life in this reality. They're going to do what they're supposed to do. They're not going to rock that boat. They're not going to try to cause any rifts within society. They're basically going to stay in line, stay within their own lane, and do what they're supposed to do in this time. If they need to gather information and accomplish these goals, they're going to do that because it's going to feel good making their family happy, doing what they're supposed to do in society, staying within their own lane. But the fact that they don't necessarily care to ask those questions to validate the ENFJ, they're going to have a hard time trying to connect, and therefore they're going to be a little impatient trying to keep up with, okay, where are you taking your life, ENFJ? Why aren't you staying on subject? Why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? Why are you going against the grain? Why are you creating your own path in this world? No one knows what you're doing in reality because you're definitely not doing what you're supposed to do. They're disregarding the playbook of society. They're referencing it from time to time, but by no means are they living their life by that. So the ISTJ is going to kind of struggle to understand who is this ENFJ person? Why are they going against the grain? Why are they always asking me all of these questions? They might see them as wasting their time. They do not see the point of gossiping and being chatty all the time. They might not necessarily feel like you're even a friend to them. So they're definitely not going to open up on their feelings. Neither one of them will really be able to validate each other. The ENFJ will try, being like, look, ISTJ, you're accomplishing so much. That's so great. But the ISTJ might be like, thanks for the compliment, but I'm supposed to be working on this. I'm not supposed to be receiving validation at this time. I have a checklist of things I need to accomplish that day, and I need to get back to work working towards them. So therefore, there's not going to be a good compatibility. I think they're just going to acknowledge each other, be like, okay, hello human, you're going in your direction, I'm going in my direction. The ENFJ's got to stop asking the ISTJ questions because they're never going to get the feedback, the information that they're actually desiring from the ISTJ, and therefore I don't really see a good compatibility. There could be a possibility if that ISTJ did grow up with a lot of NE and NI, especially if it was paired with a lot of high FE and FI. However, if they did not have that as a reference, if no one told them as a child, it's okay to create your own lane in this world. It's okay to take time and gossip with your friends and check in on each other's feelings and check in with your community members. If no one told them it's okay on how you're supposed to be that way, then they're going to kind of shut down the ENFJ more often than not with how they're communicating, with how they perceive this world. So they're not necessarily clashing at all times, but they're definitely staying out of each other's way, just acknowledging hello human, passing each other in the hallway, maybe smiling from time to time, but they're not interested in open conversation. They're not necessarily interested in connecting, and they definitely probably don't want each other in each other's lives for the long haul. So ENFJ, that is your compatibility with all 16 types. Of course, this is just my perspective, so definitely share your own takes, your own perspective on the different dynamics in the comments below. I'm sure all of us will appreciate that feedback. I appreciate you sharing your time with me and watching my video. I hope it was helpful in providing some perspective. So that's all from me today. I appreciate you guys watching, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.